Welcome to another Explainer. Jump right in with me here because today we are tackling a feeling that pretty much anyone trying to create something new is dealing with right now. It's this heavy, pervasive, kind of existential anxiety. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's that sudden dread that hits you when you watch an algorithm effortlessly compose a complex piece of music, write a massive block of code, or generate a stunning painting in literally 3 seconds. Well, today we're going to look way past the marketing hype and completely rethink our fundamental ideas about what it actually means to create.
So, are human creators becoming obsolete? It really is the central cultural question of our time. I mean, when a machine can do all the heavy mechanical lifting of writing and drawing, what's actually left for us to do? Are we just destined to sit back and watch the machines have all the fun? To put this into perspective, let's look at a famous program called EMI, which stands for Experiments in Musical Intelligence. Researchers fed it a massive database of Johann Sebastian Bach compositions, and it generated a piece of music so incredibly convincing that it literally fooled people.
This flawlessly illustrates the exact conflict we're facing today. On one side, we have mathematical recombination. When that EMI program generated its Bach-style piece, a live concert audience actually mistook it for genuine Bach. In fact, they picked it over a piece written by a living, breathing human music professor. Crazy, right? But on the other side of the ring, we have unconscious inspiration. You know, the warm, messy reality of human lived experience generating raw emotion. How can human inspiration possibly compete with a machine that perfectly mimics the masters?
Section 1. The AI Creator Myth. Okay, get this. A concept from decades ago perfectly describes the technology of tomorrow. Back in 1967, cultural theorist Roland Barthes came up with the idea of the scripter. Now, a scripter doesn't originate ideas, it just mixes and recombines existing cultural texts. That is the exact, literal definition of modern generative AI. It's essentially a mechanical vessel. Think of it like a von Neumann bobblefish that blindly ingests prompts and spits out new formats based on highly complex guessing. It translates massive amounts of data beautifully, but it does it without comprehending a single word. It's an enabler, not an originator.
Moving on to Section 2, the statistical smoothie.
If we look under the hood at how this actually works, we see a strict 3-step pipeline of what researchers call semantic decapitation. First, the system ingests these massive databases of human culture. Step 2 is where the violence happens. It uses a compression algorithm called byte-pair encoding to violently crush our flowing, holistic thoughts into discrete, rigid numerical IDs. The machine can't read our language. It can only process these chopped-up tokens. And finally, Step 3. It executes probabilistic recombination. Those beautiful, interconnected human ideas are mercilessly chopped up and thrown together into a new output based purely on statistical math.
And this brings us to a really devastating consequence known as the wood chipper effect. Because the AI relies heavily on probabilistic hardware, essentially throwing darts and mathematically guessing the nearest answer, it permanently destroys the causal chain to the original human artist who trained it. It's like a giant blender. You might know exactly what majestic raw data went into that blender initially, but once it's mixed, you absolutely cannot reverse engineer that statistical smoothie back to credit the specific human beings whose exhausting labor made the whole shebang possible.
Which brings us to Section 3, the unconscious spark.
Let's pivot sharply from the cold perfection of the machine to the wonderfully messy reality of human inspiration. Take the legendary story of Paul McCartney writing the Beatles' hit song Yesterday. McCartney literally woke up from a dream with the melody completely, fully formed in his head. And because he didn't have lyrics yet, he just walked around his house singing placeholder nonsense. He literally sang "Scrambled eggs, oh my baby, how I love your legs." That kind of mysterious, unconscious inspiration taking a human being entirely by surprise, that is something a machine processing big data simply cannot experience. That is the true unconscious spark.
Section 4, the biological friction.
To really ground McCartney's beautifully absurd anecdote, we can look at the philosopher Hannah Arendt. She pointed out a crucial distinction. Authentic creation requires something called praxis. Praxis is an active, engaged doing that is completely inextricably tied to lived human consciousness. It's the internal drive and the physical, visceral struggle of pushing your way through the messy maze of human life. True art isn't just a neat arrangement of data. It's the transmission of deeply felt, lived experience.
This builds such a stark contrast with our silicon counterparts because there are fundamental human experiences an algorithm simply lacks. Think about it. An AI has never stubbed its toe. It has never felt heartbreak or grief or sheer joy and resilience. It has absolutely zero inner self, which means it never ever feels that physical panic of staring down a blank page. Silicon faces zero biological friction, and because it fundamentally lacks a feeling brain, it hasn't lived. Therefore, it cannot truly originate.
Finally, Section 5, the algorithmic orchestrator. So this brings us to an absolute battle of wills. On one side, we have algorithmic distortion. Because the AI is constantly guessing, that mathematical guesswork inherently distorts your original intent. It's lossy and unpredictable. To combat this, we must constantly apply human protortion. Protortion is your proactive, agentic intent. It's the painstaking manual steering, the literal, exhausting sweat of the brow, required to map your vision perfectly onto reality. You have to actively reject the machine's random distortion to keep the execution aligned with your moral human mandate. Which brings us to our ultimate takeaway for this explainer. The relationship between the human pilot and the mechanical tool has never been clearer. We're no longer solitary originators, painstakingly rendering every single pixel or word from scratch. Actually, scratch that. It's more like we have evolved. We are now algorithmic orchestrators. The machine provides the immense computational sweat, but you, standing at the sovereign gate, provide the soul. The AI is simply a deterministic brush. You remain the undeniable painter.
I want to leave you with his final provocative thought. As we plunge deeper into this algorithmic era, the AI is literally just sitting there, completely blind, waiting for your command. If the machine is simply a deterministic bridge waiting for instructions, what beautifully messy, uniquely human intent will you orchestrate today? The choice and the true magic of authorship is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep creating.